And yes, good morning to you once again. It's Monday, the 9th of June, 2025. The program is On the Lord's Side, Christian Perspectives on News and Current Events. My name is Olufemi Ogutokun. You can follow me on x.com at olufemioj. You can follow Gospel Bells Radio on x.com at Gospel Bells Radio. Over the weekend, news broke that the long-serving Chief Justice of Nigeria, former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Muhammed Uwais, is dead. And I did a search. You find that this man served 11 years as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and in total he served 27 years as a justice of the Supreme Court. And that's no mean feat at all. That's no mean feat for a person to have served on the bench of the Supreme Court for 27 years. That's a substantial part of the 88 years that he spent on earth, and then 11 of those years as Chief Justice of Nigeria. So if many news outlets are reporting this, that is as it should be. That's as it should be. In fact, it appears to have been the second longest serving Chief Justice of Nigeria, only after Chief Justice, no, not Atanda Williams, but only after Sir Adetokunbo Ademola, who served from 1958 to 1972. Sir Adetokunbo Ademola served as Chief Justice for about 14 years, while Justice Muhammed Uwais served about 11 years as Chief Justice. But indeed, Justice Muhammed Uwais served 27 years in total as a justice of the Supreme Court. And of course, at a time like this, when a man dies, when a consequential man like that dies, a man who obviously played important, iconic role in the affairs of the nation, it gives occasion for a review of the man, who he was, and the things he did, and perhaps the things that he did not do. Well, during his time, I'm going to read out a tweet now about a person who reflected on the times of Chief Justice Lawal Uwais as Chief Justice of Nigeria, and compared that time with what is happening right now. What is happening right now? And when I got that tweet, I was really fascinated by it. Not only that, I was saddened by it, as many of us should indeed be saddened. And I'm going to read it out to you, and then the comment made by another legal commentator on it. This person who has this handle on Twitter, S. John, wrote this, said, "How many judges of lower or superior court in Nigeria can even jokingly say that when they die, Nigerians will mourn them the way Baba is being celebrated today?" And Baba is how many people refer to Muhammad Uwais. He exemplified the essence of being a judge. I recall the day he told me the story of when he was sworn in as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He didn't celebrate or hold any form of reception, because in his word, being sworn in as a judge or as head of court is a solemn occasion that calls for sober reflection, not celebration. You'll be celebrated in the end if you hold true to your oath of office. This is what this person claimed that Lawal Uwais said when he was sworn in as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Then he continued, "Today, being appointed a judge calls for a serious celebration and party, because judges no longer do the work of a judge. In fact, state government organizes and hosts such parties. The calling is now a lucrative career where oath holders lobby to be in election petition panels where judgment is sought to the highest bidder without pretense or shame." And this is the point I wanted to emphasize. It used to be an anathema of sort to hear that a person who has been appointed a judge is throwing a party to celebrate it. To some modern minds, it may appear like the norm, but it was never the norm. Again, something that has changed. It used to be the case in the past that originally people don't lobby to become judges. It is a panel set up to scout for judges that will then reach out to different people and say, look, we identify that you have the temperament and the experience and the knowledge to serve as a judge, and then they invite that person to be a judge. The person considers it. Oftentimes it's you are actually trading off. You are trading off something for that position, because then it limits you in a number of ways. That has since changed, of course. We have so many people lobbying for these things, and when people are appointed as judges, then they throw lavish parties. Indeed, judges are restricted by their code of conduct from engaging in such interactions as you would expect to see at a Nigerian party. Even if it's just a cocktail, they are prevented by their ethics from engaging like that. But everybody does it now. And I love the fact that the passing of Chief Justice Lawal Uwais has brought this to mind. This is exactly what happens. I said earlier on, when a person passes, it gives the occasion for people to reflect on what that person has done, what that person did not do, how what that person did compares with what is happening now. And another point that this person made is this quote: "You will not find any of his relatives or children that he made a judge while serving for 11 years as Chief Justice after being in that Supreme Court for 16 years. A man who was in the Apex Court for a total of 27 years surely could have been able to ensure that all his family members hold key positions as judges or other senior persons in the judiciary. Not one. He didn't push to make his hardworking son Muhammed Uwais. He didn't push to make him a senior advocate of Nigeria. He could do it if he wanted, but he had values and lived a sincere, principled life." Amazing. And I call it amazing because to the contemporary mind that is not redeemed, it would appear that this man was stupid or foolish indeed. And of course, then I read this commentary by Chidi Odikalu on this. He said, "Thank you to S. John," and that's the person who wrote the original tweet. He said, quote, "In 27 years at Supreme Court of Nigeria, 11 of which he spent as Chief Justice, Muhammad Lawal Uwais did not appoint his son, daughter, wife, or mistress as judge or SAN. By contrast," and I'm quoting Chidi Odikalu, so by contrast, Olukayode Ariwola spent only 2 years as Chief Justice of Nigeria and littered the entire place with his family." And that's so true. You must have heard about that scandal, how the brother of a former Chief Justice was said to have been appointed as the auditor of the Supreme Court, how a daughter was made a judge, how another relative was made a senior advocate of Nigeria. And that's not limited only to that former Chief Justice of Nigeria. It appears to be the norm now. Governors make their wives judges, and justices make their children senior advocate of Nigeria. And it appears that the days have now passed us when there was so much integrity and people had so much regard, not only for the profession, also for their own reputation. The way people would say, "Look, I don't want to engage in things like that. I want to do things. I want to be fit and proper, as we would say at the law school, and I want to be above board." This is a sad commentary on the justice system, and a nation where the justice system is disafflicted is not a nation that is at peace with God. Because God values above all else in human societies justice, that justice be done. And at its very core, what does it mean to do justice? To give every man his due. You are not going to give every man his due if you are conflicted, if you are compromised, if you paid to get to the position. There is no way you're going to give every man his due. The piper must pay the tune dictated by the person who hired him. Right, the person who hired the piper must always call the tune, and if he's unable to call the tune, he's going to do something about it. I think it is to the credit of Justice Muhammad Lawal Uwais that many people have such beautiful things to write about him. Perhaps it is not. It may be not because he did sterlingly well. It may be because things are falling, even things have gone south after him, and that those who have come after him have not lived up to his own level of transparency and probity. It could be that the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes a person has not done excellently well, but because those who came after that person have done worse, then that person becomes like the compass. The person becomes a standard to be admired, and that may be true. I do not know, but again, there are many things about the man that we do not know, especially about judges. And you see, to be a judge is quite a weighty thing indeed, because if you want to displease God, if you want to embark on the high road, the expressway to displeasing God, you go and do injustice, even in the smallest matter, even in the most inconsequential matter, or the matter that you consider most inconsequential. You go and miscarry justice, and then you will know what it means to face the wrath of God. I do not know whether Justice Lawal Uwais did any such thing in his own career. I hope if he did, that he had time to make amends. It's always difficult to make amends in such matters, but in a country like this, there's so much pressure on those who are judges to do this thing. And that reminds me, right, of this quote, which is one to be written, to be engraved into the palms of every Christian who serves as a judge. Let every judge bear in mind that they too shall face judgment for each miscarriage of justice they allow. So for all of us as human beings, it is given that we're going to die, and after that, judgment. But for those who are judges, let them bear in mind that they too shall face judgment for each miscarriage of justice they allow. I will be judged, you will be judged for the things you have done and the things perhaps you have not done. And judges will be judged for the things they have done and things they have not done. They also be judged for the judgments that they issued in their lifetime. If all judges would bear this in mind, would believe it, and would not allow their hearts to be hardened, think about how the judiciary will be. And if the judiciary will be peopled by judges who know that they will be judged by God for each miscarriage of justice, if the judiciary was peopled by people like that, imagine what kind of society we're going to have. We're going to have a society where even if the president should call and say, do this, which would be injustice, a person who is in fear of God will say, no, I dare not, because after I leave this bench, one day I will stand before the God who is going to judge me for every miscarriage of justice I allow. It is that heart we should be praying for, that heart of flesh in our judges. And you know what? Let God give us such judges, and we're going to be gladdened by the fundamental change that will take place in our society. Okay, next I want to comment on the recently aired Ojude Oba Festival in Nigeria. Now, if you do not know of the Ojude Oba Festival, you should know about it. It's quite a colorful one, and credit to the organizers. They are now making it go global. I understand that it was streamed on many platforms this year, and it's an homecoming of sorts. You know what an homecoming is? A time when people who are united by cultural heritage or by some other factors choose a day, a date, or a time or a period to all come together from their different stations in life to celebrate what unites them. According to Wikipedia, Ojude Oba, the King's Forecourt, but that's the literal translation. Ojude Oba means the King's Court or the King's Arena. The King's Arena is an ancient festival celebrated by the Yoruba people of Ijebu-Ode, a major town in Ogun State, southwestern Nigeria. This annual festival usually takes place the third day after the Eid el-Kabir, which is popularly called Ileya, to pay homage and show respect to the Royal Majesty, the Awujale of Ijebu land. It is one of the most spiritual and glamorous festivals celebrated in Ijebu land and generally in Ogun State as a whole. Okay, I'm fascinated by the spiritual aspect of this festival mentioned in this Wikipedia article. One should dig deeper to check out that the person who wrote this article refers to it as one of the most spiritual and glamorous festivals celebrated in the Ijebu land. I don't know about the spiritual aspect of it. We know about the glamorous aspect of it because we see that on social media, we see that on TVs, we see that in different pictures. This person has said it has a spiritual component as well. I do not know for a fact. Maybe one should dig deeper into that. But I can comment on it briefly, just to say that if it has spiritual aspect, you can be sure that you're not going to see it. You're only going to see the glamorous side to it, which is typical of many celebrations in the world today. Typical of many non-church celebrations in the world today. You only see the glamorous part, and you say to yourself, "Oh, that's all to it." But there could be more to it. Again, I said it. I have not done any research into the spiritual aspect of the Ojude Oba as claimed by the writer of this Wikipedia article, but I can say for a certain for that even if it has spiritual connotations, it is typical of non-Christian celebrations that have spiritual aspect, not to put the spiritual aspect front and center, but to put forth the glamorous aspect of the celebration, and everybody embraces it and says, "Oh, it's all glamour." It just could be one of those things where the more you look, the less you see. But that's not really the point that I want to make about this. I wanted to focus first on the glamour for which this festival is known, for how colorful this festival is known, and I want to contrast it with another homecoming that some may say, well, can it possibly be as colorful as that? I do not know if you have ever seen any video coming out of this Ojude Oba Festival, either from last year. The ones from last year were exceptional, and there was a particular man who, of course, stole the show, one Mr. Farouk Oreagba, who is now called in Nigeria in entertainment circles as the King of Steez. A man obviously even past middle age, but still in great shape and great form. A man handsome by any yardstick, and who has a sense of style that is indeed admirable. Last year, he turned out for the Ojude Oba Festival in a beautiful attire. He mounted a horse. He mounted it so capably that, he stole the show. Even and after that event, he got a contract to represent or to promote a particular telecommunications brand in Nigeria. That's how captivating his appearance was at the last Ojude Oba Festival. Somebody did a thread on X.com compiling beautiful pictures from this year's Ojude Oba Festival. I showed this Mr. Farouk Oreagba, of course, calling him the King of Steez. Showed another lady, Yetunde Oduwole, who is currently serving as a minister in the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. She also turned out in a charming attire, colorful attire. Now, I'm not very good with color, so I'm not going to make any attempt to say the color, but I know some colors that are clear, that are clearly obvious. I say, Ni Fagbemi, I do not know who he is or what he's notable for, but he's in this collection as well, wearing an exceptional agbada. It appears to be mint green, and definitely, these are colors and dresses that once you see them, you say, wow. And that's the whole point. And many of those who attended this festival would make a point, right, to turn out in something that elicits wow from the crowd. Wow, what an exceptional appearance. On a light note, somebody has said that many of these people would go into debt, just to be able to make an appearance, at this festival. This festival is actually a big deal for people who come from Ijebu in southwestern Nigeria. I know people who traveled all the way from Canada just to be a part of it. Indeed, people travel from all over the world, from different stations in the world to be part of it, because the people of Ujebu, they are then arranged according to their age groups. So you want to be part of your age group and to make an appearance, and each age group will then come up with a style, with a dress style, and they all turn out like that. I know there's always that beauty when you have a large number of people wearing the same thing. Have you witnessed it before? Especially when the chosen attire is beautiful, is captivating, is colorful, and is exceptional, and then you have hundreds of people wearing it, or 1,000. Wow! Then you say, what a crowd! What a beautiful, what a captivating crowd indeed! And that's one of the beauty of the Ojude Oba Festival. I've never been there, but I've read stories and I've seen pictures and videos. And even as I think about it, I say to myself, I can imagine what must have gone into people, what must have gone into the discussion in each age group before they arrive. At a consensus on what to wear, what color to wear, and what style to wear, right? I think about that, what must have gone into the thinking there. I mean, can you imagine? Because I mean, think of the small committees that you participate in when people want to make a decision on colors to wear, or to pick a designer, or to pick something. You see how sometimes it devolves into, or not even degenerates into argument, sometimes into very, even sometimes hateful, argument, and people go back and forth until they arrive at some. So, I mean, the last time I think of each age group at the Ojude Oba Festival, they must, have gone through a lot, discussion to arrive at the dress that the age group would wear for each year. There's also a cuckoo lady who also turned out in captivating agbada and rode a horse. There's a Princess Adeshile as well, who wore the traditional light brown beautiful attire. There's an Elvis. There is, of course, Femi Branch, who is a notable actor, who also turned out in an attire that you must give a second look indeed, and many others like that. There is an Ebonloa Dosumo in green, fascinating green. There is a Tomike who wore something quite simple. Okay, no, I think something really exceptional as well. I did not know that she is also from Ijebu-Ode, and many actors like that. And of course, the governor of Ogun State. This governor, of course, is not from Ijebu-Ode. I understand, as I was speaking with some people after church yesterday, he's from a neighboring town in Ogun State. But as the governor, he was at that event, and it turned out in a gold agbada, which everybody had to admit almost stole the show, perhaps even stole the show. Of course, the governor of Ogun State is known for his panache, and every time he steps out in real style. And I can understand why an homecoming should be made that beautiful, that colorful. If you call it an homecoming, if it happens only once in a year, if people will have to travel from different cities in Nigeria, different countries of the world to be at that event, it is expected that it be colorful. And to the human eye, colors are everything. Bright colors, beautiful colors tell of joy, don't they? They tell of joy, they tell of happiness, and it's all good. But as I think about it, and I invite you to think about it from a Christian perspective, when are we going to have the greatest homecoming of all? The greatest homecoming of all will happen as described in Revelation 7:9, when we are going to find a great multitude that no one can count, from every nation, every tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. And that homecoming, interestingly, would it be colorful? They're going to have different colors. God made the colors, didn't he? He made all the colors that fascinate us, all the colors that captivate us, all the colors that make us glad and excited. The Lord God made us all. But do you know what color he has chosen for that greatest homecoming? White. And after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. All those wonderful colors worn by those who attended the Ojude Oba Festival in Ijebu-Ode, all those wonderful colors that we wear to all our celebrations, that excite us, that charm us, that captivate us, that tell of the glory of God, all those wonderful created by God, they are only beautiful before the Lord if indeed they are covered by the righteousness of Christ. by the rising of Christ. Nobody is going to charm the judge on that last day by his colorful attire, but everyone will be received by the judge with joy, the Lord God Almighty, if he or she is wearing the white, which is symbolic of the righteousness of Jesus Christ. So engage in all your celebrations, love your colors, wear your beautiful dresses, but before that and above all else, be sure that you have on you, that you have been given that white robe by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. For without that robe, you are not going to be part of the ultimate homecoming. Yes, and okay. Next, I want to talk about another story that has been making its rounds, on social media in Nigeria, and that's the story concerning the pastor. I believe he's the founder, so I don't know the way he's actually styled. The pastor of House on the Rock, a church, a very popular church in Nigeria. And over the weekend, or maybe towards the end of last week, social media in Nigeria was flooded with a video showing this pastor riding in a particular SUV that I do not know the exact name, but the SUV caught the eye of all and sundry, and indeed caught the eye of a particular content creator in Nigeria who saw it as one of the most recent exotic vehicles in the world. Now there are people, now of course you know how social media operates nowadays. Social media can only be as captivating as the industry of content creators permits, meaning that you are only going to get hooked to your Instagram or your other social media platform, your Facebook or Twitter, as long as people are creating content. Imagine that people were not creating content, then you would open your Instagram and then you will see the thing that you saw yesterday, the thing that you saw last week, and then you're not going to go back to that app again. Now, those who are the creators of these apps, they know that if they don't flood it with fresh content every day, people will not go to those apps again, and then they will not be able to get advertisers to their platforms. So they figured it out that look, there must be content creators, and many of them, if I do not know of any social media platform now that does not have a monetization program for content creators. Those who create content are rewarded by money payment, so that they are then encouraged to create more content. And then content creators also know that because there are just so many content creators in the world, in fact everybody is by definition a content creator. If you use social media, if you post on it, you are creating content. But those who want to monetize their content, they know that they have to stand out, and for you to stand out, you have to be posting something worth saying. And that's why some of when we make posts, people just have very little engagement with it, because maybe that's not what they want to, that's not really what that's not what catches their fancy. So content makers want to create content that will catch the fancy of those who use these social media platforms. And again, people have devised the means to define areas of expertise, if I may use it that way. So you have some people who focus on just posting about fashion, some who focus on posting things about relationships, some about food, and those about food, they inundate us with all sorts, and some about cars. And many people are now doing that in Nigeria, because you find that in a nation as economically challenged as Nigeria, I don't want to say as poor, but as economically challenged as Nigeria, in a nation where you have so many people who are struggling, indeed where you have so many people who are living under the poverty line, you find as well that in that same society you have many people who are driving exotic cars, latest cars. So sometimes I follow some of these. You find 20-25 versions of cars on the streets of Lagos, and these are the things. I mean, if you were to devote your content creation business to posting latest cars on Lagos roads, you're going to get a large following. And I think this is what happened to this particular content creator. His name yet we do not know. It was on the streets of Lagos, and he sighted this gray SUV, obviously of the latest kind, perhaps 2025 or 2024. And then he brought out his camera and he started filming it, obviously for the sake of for the purpose of them reposting it online to say, look, I just saw this 2025 dash vehicle on Lagos road. And everybody will look at it and say, wow, these rich people, wow, already in Lagos and things like that. That's the whole thing. And then the content maker, of course, would then again continue to earn money from those who own these platforms. But then he could not have known that the person in that car was the pastor of the House of the Rock Church, Pastor Paul Adefarasin, who in that video then wound down his window and appeared in that video to look sternly at the content creator to warn him off. And in his right hand, he appeared to be holding a pistol. And that's really what got everybody talking on social media, that a pastor was sighted. Now, there are so many levels to this story. To some people, it could be an issue that a pastor was sighted in such an expensive car. You want to say, how did he get that kind of money? Of course, the pastor will say it's from God, that God gave him the money. But let's leave that. I'm not going to go into that today. And it was in that car. He wound down the window. He looked sternly at the man, but he had in his hand a pistol. And many people started naturally asking questions. Why did he think that he should have a pistol in his hand? Of course, he would have. Some people will see it from his point of view and say, look, that's the pastor of one of the largest churches in Nigeria. He is also expected to be rich, given that he's a Pentecostal pastor presiding over a church like that. He's obviously rich if he's driving a car like that. And of course, the more earthly resources you have, the more protection you need, right? Those who don't have so much of earthly resources don't think of getting extra protection, because they say, who wants to even if you kill me, what are you going to go away with? But the more earthly possession you have, the more protection you need from those who may want to steal those things from you and who may want to harm you in the process. And that is why, of course, godly wisdom teaches us that earthly possessions, as good as they are, as useful as they could be, they actually complicate our lives, and that is a truth, and that is true. Anyway, he had what looked like a pistol in his hand, and I say that advice said what looked like a pistol in his hand. He also appeared to brandish it, to show it to that content creator, like to say, look, don't follow me, or don't do any stupid thing, because I have a pistol here. And now I can understand why somebody riding such an expensive car on the streets of Lagos would want to warn off potential harassment, by people who could be criminals. Even those of us who don't drive cars as expensive as this. I know we once had a car, a very beautiful car, which we love, but it was basically a Toyota, but it was exceptionally beautiful, and we were harassed on the street of Lagos by hoodlums, potential thieves, and about twice. At one time, my wife and I; at another time, just myself. I was driving to court. I had my lawyer attire on, and yes, this guy, came to my window and tried to harass me. So I can understand how rich people driving in captivating cars may feel they need to have extra security. In fact, in that video, you will find that he had another car, like an escort car, obviously following him, driving that car. But then he brandished what appeared to be like a pistol, and everybody started asking the question, what was he doing? Number one, having a pistol in his car and then brandishing it and then appearing to scare off that content creator. And that forced Pastor Adefarisin himself to issue a statement, which he earlier issued, and said, look, things are not as they seem, and I'm going to talk about it at our Sunday service, the 9 a.m. service. And then indeed he spoke about it. I saw that video yesterday when I came back from church, and he said, well, what happened was the aggressiveness of a content creator and the overzealousness of that content creator. He said it was not just an attack on his local church, that it was an organized strategy of the devil. So he made it about the devil. He said we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, we wrestle against spiritual wickedness, and you know that as we are taught by the Bible. He said money is the root of all evil, that content creator wanted to make money and then was aggressive. Now many people did not find that response acceptable. I must also mention that Pastor Adefarasin mentioned that he was not holding a pistol. It may look like that, meaning that you guys saw something that looked like a pistol. It was not a pistol, that was said to us, but he did not say to us what the object was. Everybody can see it in his hand in that video, but he said it was not a pistol because he does not have the license to carry firearms, and so he was not holding a pistol and he did not point it at anyone. I can understand how he must have received legal advice. If indeed he does not have a license to own a pistol and he had one, that could put him in legal jeopardy of sorts. So he was quick to say it was not a pistol. He was quick to say he did not have a license to bear firearms. So he did not have one and he did not brandish anyone. Now, do I know for a fact whether it was a pistol or not? I'm not going to be that rash to say, no, it was a pistol. How can he be lying? I mean, I saw what looked like a pistol there in that video, but hey, let's humor him and say maybe it is not what we saw. It would have been helpful for him to say that this thing that I was holding in my hand was not a pistol, it was this. And then we will all go and look at that and say, oh yeah, that is something that looks like a pistol. He did not tell us what he was holding in his hand, but he did say that he was not carrying a pistol, that it was nothing. That it was nothing. I do not like really that the pastor brought into it these spiritual aspect about the devil and about how the commentary by people amount to an attack on his church or on his position as a pastor. This is not correct, and respectfully so. And I think Apostle Peter made that point about making a difference, understanding the difference between suffering for righteousness' sake and then suffering for our own actions. In this case, this was just a vanity show by this pastor, driving that exotic car and then maybe fearing for his life, trying to warn off the person who was videotaping his car. That cannot be said to be suffering for righteousness' sake. When we talk about attacks by the devil, you are talking about attacking us for the sake of righteousness, for the sake of our pursuit of Christ. I fail to see, I may be wrong, to see what was the pursuit of Christ in what he was doing at that time that made him to bring in that aspect. You see, when we do that, when we find ourselves engaged in our secular matters, and maybe consequences begin to come because of the things we have done or we have refused to do, a purely secular everyday matter, we ridicule the name of Christ. I must say that we bring his name into disrepute. If you then make it about the devil and say it's about the devil and God, this is not about the devil and God. You were riding a flashy car on the streets of Lagos. Content creators are always on the streets making video, taking pictures and taking video recordings as well. And this person saw you, obviously did not go so near you, as we can see from that video, and then it was you who wound down your window. It was you who issued a threat. We could not hear him. It was you who appeared to be brandishing a pistol. And to now say that, it was actually an attack on the church, it was actually a spiritual attack by the devil, that actually brings the name of God into disrepute. We should not bring his name into matters like that. I'm not going to be a judge over the pastor or any pastor who chooses to drive flashy cars, who loves beautiful cars. If you love beautiful cars, if you have the means to acquire them, if you got those means by righteous way, by if you got your riches in the righteous manner, and you love cars, by all means, well, buy your cars and ride in them. Some people will have argument. They'll say, look, if a Christian is that blessed, he should be looking at doing good to the world, promoting evangelism. You can say, look, I've promoted enough. I'm not going to be a judge on that, but I will agree with people who say that in a matter like this, it's not a matter where you want to then bring in God and the devil, because then you cheapen your Lord. It was not him. And Apostle Peter made that point, that if I talk to you, people will say, look, if I talk to you about suffering for righteousness' sake, I'm talking about suffering for righteousness' sake. I'm talking about suffering because you are standing up for God. But if you are facing certain problems in your life as a result of the things you have done and things you have not done in your everyday engagement, that's a different thing. And we should always make that difference. We should make that difference clear as well. I would have been pleased if this pastor merely said, "Oh, it was not a pistol. I do not have a license to carry a pistol, and I was not carrying a pistol." It should have stopped there. It needed not go to those lengths and then to bring in those scriptural passages. It demeans our Lord, and that point must be made indeed. Again, many people have recalled that this pastor actually at a time was also caught by many people on social media stepping down from his vehicle to warn off a downfall driver who appeared to have hit his car or almost hit his car. And many people were disappointed at that time, really. Many people said, wow, this pastor, he had to step up from his car and he warned off a downfall driver. Who's a downfall driver? If you're not in Nigeria, downfall driver is a driver of a common bus, common commercial bus in Lagos, and those downfalls are not known to be well kept. They are rickety, most times rickety vehicles conveying people on the streets of Lagos. So it was said at that time that this pastor stepped up from his car and went to that downfall driver and warned him off. Well, you will say, well, what if the downfall driver was wrong? And I agree with you. What if he was wrong? But there are some things that even you should not do. Usually for the sake of Christ, usually also because of practical wisdom. You don't want to get entangled in things that anything could happen and it could escalate into something that you would not want. Now, the whole point of me mentioning this and then the bringing of God into it and the devil and the Bible in the pastor's defense of himself is because of what one popular radio presenter wrote. This person wrote after Pastor Adefarasin made those statements in his church yesterday about the incidents of him allegedly brandishing a pistol to one of a content creator, because he himself admitted that he was a content creator, not a thief. This person wrote, said, "Dear Pastor Paul Adefarasin, do yourself a huge favor and register for anger management classes as soon as possible. You have committed 2 of public displays of violence. One of them directly drew blood. Now, I don't know about that one. Low key, you might be doing worse in private. Your brother in Christ, N6." So this guy is known as N6. He appears to be an on-air personality. I don't know him, but now I know him. N6, an on-air personality. According to Instablog Nigeria, it says OAP N6 writes an open letter to Pastor Paul Adefarasin on anger management. Dear Pastor Adefarasin, do yourself a huge favor and register for anger management classes as soon as possible. You have committed 2 series of public displays of violence. One of them directly drew blood. Low key, you might be doing worse in private. In fact, it is that closing portion that says you might be doing worse in private that is most wounding. That's most wounding. And everybody looking at this could be saying, well, if these people act like this in the public, what could they be doing in secret? Now, the whole point is, do I take pleasure in having things like this said about people who identify as Christians, not to talk about people who identify as pastors? No, it is sad. And that's the whole point of bringing it up, that our calling above all else is to honor the Lord and not to be the source of bringing shame and ridicule to his name. And that is why in most cases you want to forbear, you want to look away from certain wrongs, and you want to go your way. What if this pastor, knowing that, okay, he has said he didn't hold a pistol, but let's say that he saw this person videotaping his car, and then he did what? He drove off. Even if he feared that he could be followed, maybe he would take some precaution to then change his route and then try to get off these people. And in any case, he had an escort vehicle close to him. What if he had not wound down his window? What if he had not issued a threat to that content creator? What if he had not brandished whatever he was brandishing? He said it was not a pistol. What if he had not brandished? What if he had driven off? Nobody would have known about this. Nobody would have known that he was the one in that video nobody would then have the occasion, to talk about pastors. And of course, you don't want to read the comments that people wrote under these stories. Again, you say the old comment about people casting aspersion on the church and on Christians and those who attend their churches. We are not going to sit in judgment over anyone, but we are going to point out again that it is not a good thing when we give an occasion for people of the world to cast aspersion on the name of Christ. Indeed, one of the popular skit makers in Nigeria, Mr. Macaroni, also wrote, said, so in that video we all watched, it is that boy that was aggressive. He came in close proximity. The same video we all watched, it's okay. Because he was reacting to Pastor Adefarisin's statement that content creator was aggressive. But everybody saw that video, it would appear that it was Pastor Adefarisin who was aggressive. Now, let us also moderate our position by saying that when you see a short video clip, it may actually be misleading, because if you did not witness the entirety of the encounter, it could actually mislead you. If you saw just say, and that was a short video clip really, if you saw just a minute of 30 seconds of an encounter, that 30 minutes could be a misrepresentation of what really happened, because it could be something that happened before, but even the pastor did not say that it happened before. He did not say that it was longer than that. If he had said that, we could then begin to say, oh, maybe indeed there were aspects of this thing that we did not see. The point I'm trying to make is that this has given occasion to people to talk to a pastor this way, to a person who puts himself forward as a pastor this way, to say, oh, you are lying. Essentially, this man was saying, oh, you are lying. That's essentially what Mr. Macaroni was saying. You are lying. You are calling that person aggressive, who was not aggressive, obviously, in that picture. You are calling that person, you are saying that person came into close proximity with you, when of course we know that it did not, or when of course we can see that person did not come into close proximity with you. So essentially people saying, oh, this pastor lied, right? That's exactly what they say. Another social media personality, now this lady called Tacha, who became popular as a result of her appearance on the Big Brother Niger program. He also, according to this report, has knocked clergyman Paul Adefarasin. I mean, how can you find that? I mean, how do you find that people like Tacha, and with all respect to her, this is not to denigrate her in any way, but just social media and entertainment personalities also finding a voice, being given a voice. That's what to put it. They're not being given a voice, to knock down on people who identify with Christ. And if you don't feel bad about it, I think you should. We all should be zealous for the name of our Lord. We should not be happy when his name is brought into disrepute. And of course, this social media person then wrote on social media, she argued that if it was somebody else, it would have been on fire, and she said this is wrong, that it was wrong of that pastor to refer to that person as aggressive. And this is also a moment for us to reflect on a theme in practical wisdom. You are only to say so much, just as much as you are requested to say. If this pastor has stopped just at saying that, hey, what you saw was not a pistol, I don't have a license to carry a pistol, I was not carrying a pistol, then the burden of proof would have shifted to whoever was alleging that he was carrying a pistol. But that he went further. When you go further than necessary, or when you go farther than necessary, you get yourself into trouble. I just only want to say, as much as needed for that moment. When you go further than necessary, you get yourself into trouble. And when you begin to now bring the name of God and the scriptures into what was purely your own action that had no spiritual dimensions, and there are people who want to say, oh, everything has a spiritual dimensions. If you want to say that, you're going to get into trouble. You'll not be able to make that distinction that Peter made when he said there are some sufferings that are occasioned because of our stand for righteousness, and there are some that are just the result of our actions. I fail to see the basis for anybody suggesting that what happened here was not just Pastor Adefarisin being criticized for what he did. and which he ought not to have done, or which he could have avoided if he wanted to. I'm not pleased that he brought he brought God into it. I'm not pleased that he described it as an attack on his church or on Christianity. That wasn't it. I'm not pleased that he has given an occasion to allow for just social media personalities, entertainment figures to cast aspersion on the name of Christ. Yes, you will say that whatever aspersion they cast, the Church of Christ will continue to march on indeed, and the gate of hell will not overcome it. Yes, the gate of hell will never overcome it, but still, as Paul said, Paul wrote and said, look, for your sake, you have given an occasion for the name of God to be blasphemed, and that's a big deal. And I'm always saying to myself, Lord, above all else, please preserve me and help me, so that because of me, the name of God will never be blasphemed. That's from Romans 2:24. As it is written, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. May you never give an occasion for the Gentiles to blaspheme the name of God. And indeed, we must continue to pray for all those who popularly identify with Christ in the culture, especially those of them who are serving him in truth and spirit. We cannot know them, but God knows those who are his children, that the Lord will preserve them. Many of them are doing their best, but it's a difficult culture that we live in, that God will help them and help you and help me, so that because of us, the Gentiles will not blaspheme the name of our Lord. I want to thank you very much for staying with us this morning on Gospel Best Radio for On the Lord's Side, Christian Perspectives on News and Current Events. I hope to be with you again tomorrow by the grace of God. Whatever you do today, please remain firmly on the Lord's side. God bless you. God bless you really good.
You are listening to GospelBellsRadio.com, the Christian internet radio with a mission to engage the culture with the mind of Christ. Keep listening and invite others too. God bless you.
Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ.
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 Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ.